Welcome back to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, the podcast where we go deeper into the espionage movies you love and where you will always discover something new. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
And today we're decoding something every Bond fan can appreciate. So, by the end of this episode, you will know our top 20 impactful quotes from James Bond movies and what they mean to the franchise and why they are so important.
The James Bond movies have given us some of the most memorable lines in movie history. And sometimes there's a lot more to a quote. Sometimes behind those famous lines are deeper meanings about power, seduction, danger, and sometimes pure psychological warfare.
That's cute.
And hey, we know our selection of 20 won't be everyone's selection. So if we missed ones you love, shout them out in the notes on our Facebook posts about this episode. Let's go, Dan.
Yeah, all right. The important thing here is these quotes are meaningful and impactful quotes that impact the franchise, and that's why we selected them as well. Before I forget, I just wanted to point this out, Tom, that this is our 350th episode of Cracking the Code of Spy Movies.
Wow.
Yikes!
So if you're new to the channel, start at 1 and listen to them all. And thanks for being there. We do appreciate that too.
Thank you for listening. We wouldn't have gotten this far without you. All right, let's start our countdown with quote number 20.
Mr. Smith & Wesson. And you've had your 6.
Or 8, maybe. This line appears in the very first Bond movie when Bond confronts Professor Dent after Dent unloads all of his rounds into the bed where he thought James Bond was sleeping, of course.
Well, and it establishes Bond immediately that he's calm, he's calculating, and he's completely in control. I mean, this guy's got no chance against him at this point, and Bond takes him out.
Yeah, and here's the real meaning here. Bond doesn't rush violence. He lets his enemy make the mistake first. Well, sometimes.
Yeah, but you think about that. It's like, how many times can he die because he does that? But it's psychological dominance for sure in this scene. He makes Dent squirm mentally before he kills him.
Yes.
He's forcing Dent into a moment of realization. Dent realizes he's done for, and he's already lost.
Yeah.
When we talk about Bond being a blunt instrument, here he's toying with his prey.
Yeah, and this is the important part that we're pointing out. It's not just a quote. It's what it means. Just like Grant was doing to Bond in the next movie, From Russia with Love. In Dr. No here, Bond wins mentally before he wins physically. So really, it's Bond's first cool but savage mic drop. So a great line in the first Bond outing on the big screen that gives us insight into his on-screen character. Now, when we spoke with gun expert Caleb Daniels, he told us that Dent's gun was actually a Colt 911, which I believe he said could hold 7 rounds.
That's right.
Plus a chambered round. So you had your 8. Oops.
Well, Bond's calm, but that could have been a really deadly mistake. So if you want to hear more about what Caleb told us about the guns in the James Bond movie, check out our YouTube channel. We dive deeply into the guns used in the series. We show them to you. We show you the clips from the movies. It's a really fun one.
Yeah, he's terrific.
Quote number 19 is one that I really like because I really like wine. We go to From Russia with Love, and James Bond realizes that Red Grant is an imposter, but maybe too late.
Red wine with fish. Well, that should have told me something.
He didn't take this red wine clue seriously enough. It was only an afterthought, which is not good.
Yeah, and it's really one of the greatest subtle spy clues in the franchise. And Bond didn't pay attention enough to it.
Yeah, but kind of like the gun being called out as the wrong gun in Dr. No, this clue is kind of a red herring, pardon the pun. You know that many people believe you can't drink red wine with fish. And Dan, you know, I have a fairly good knowledge of wine. I'm not a sommelier, but I have a decent understanding of wines.
Yeah, right.
And a red wine with fish shouldn't be a hard rule. I mean, yes, I wouldn't take up a big, bold Cabernet with a mackerel or a herring, because that can leave a metallic aftertaste. I'm sure you knew.
Of course, yes.
Pair it with a cod and it'll overpower the fish.
There you go.
Put a Pinot with a cod and it works fine. Pairing the cab with the salmon, that usually works. Now, there's a book from 1989 by a guy named David Rosengarten. Okay, I know I'm going way deep on this. Called
Yeah.
Red Wine with Fish, The New Art of Matching Wine with Food. It's an excellent
Yes.
resource on the topic. It's dated
Bond
as the
should read
wines.
it.
I did read it.
Bond should read it.
Bond should read it. Well, it wasn't out then.
Oh, damn.
So he calls for wines in there saying, oh, match this, match this. The concepts are still valid. You're not going to find those wines anymore.
Yeah, but, this is in the 1960s. It was pretty much gospel. That was not to be played with. That
that's
concept,
true.
right? So when Fleming wrote this stuff and when they made this movie, they're not thinking like they think now. Me, I have Pinot Noir with salmon all the time, and I'm fine. All right, enough of the wine lessons and the pairings. You got some good ones there. But here's the real meaning here. In espionage and in real life, tiny cultural mistakes expose infiltrators. And these days, though, drink whatever you want with your fish, okay? All right, let's get to quote number 18. One of the best exchanges ever. This isn't one line, it's two by two different people, and you probably know which line we're talking about. From Goldfinger.
Do you expect me to talk?
Bond assumes he's about to be interrogated. He's stalling for time. You expect me to talk, and that's why you're threatening me with this whole laser thing. A good line by Bond, but...
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Yeah, now this is one of the most famous villain lines in cinema history. I mean, 62 years later, it's still an extremely well-known line from a villain.
Yeah. Now, the real meaning here, the villain's arrogance becomes Bond's greatest weapon. We know Bond bluffs Goldfinger at the end here, mentioning Operation Grand Slam, and Bond saves his own neck, or groin.
Yeah. A little lower, Dan.
All right.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Let's move to quote 17. And regular listeners to this podcast are going to be surprised that I'm going to say this quote. All right. You know I hate the movie Die Another Day.
No,
but it does have one great line by James Bond. But this one's different than all of the others we're calling out today.
Okay.
What matters in this one is not the characters that are talking. It's who the actor that receives the line is. It has nothing to do with the character.
Okay.
Right? You know where I'm going with this one, Dan?
I think so.
Okay. So Bond just killed M with the simulator glasses on. And his response to Q was...
Check the replay. You'll find he's dead, and she's only got a flesh wound.
The flesh wound line.
Yeah.
Now, the real meaning of this is this line wouldn't have worked had John Cleese not been Q here. And some of our listeners may have never seen the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but that's from, I think, 1975. There's a very famous scene in that movie where a character called the Black Knight, played by John Cleese, has his arms and legs cut off. Now, This doesn't sound like a comedy, but it is. It's done pretty funny. And once he loses his leg, the Black Knight says,
"You've got no arms left." "Yes, I have. Look, it's just a flesh wound."
It's just a flesh wound. So we've heard that line in another movie, National Lampoon's European Vacation in 1985. But for me, it just makes me laugh. And though I can't be sure, I have to believe that John Cleese put this in to Die Another Day. I can't believe that Purvis and Wade could have come up with something so clever.
Yeah, it would have been a hell of a coincidence.
Yeah, it's just such a great line for the actor being there because it's one of his most famous lines.
Yeah. Only a flesh wound.
It's only a flesh wound.
Quote number 16. I know, Tom, this is one of your favorites for sure. Another one from Goldfinger.
Shocking. Positively shocking.
I love that line.
Bond quips this after electrocuting a henchman, Carpungo, played by actor Alf Joint, in a bathtub by tossing an electric heater into the tub where Carpungo is. So,
well, Capungo is the Spanish name for thug, so that's good. But I'm shocked you would call this one out, Dan.
Yeah, yeah,
We only say it about 5 times a month to each other.
yeah. Shock. All right. Now, the real meaning here is it's another Bond trait we will see developed over the movies. Bond uses humor. This is important. Bond uses humor to distance himself from violence. His business can be violent, and he builds this humor as a barrier. Very clever and done so well here. But we will see it over and over again in Bond movies to come. But this is the key, right? He's protecting himself.
And it's early on in the series here. So.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
This is good.
so for quote number 15, we're going to go to The Spy Who Loved Me.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
This one is Bond's patriotic understatement.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I get it. He and Triple X were covered up a bit. I get it.
Yeah.
An understatement.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a few puns today, sorry.
All right.
Now,
Let's get to
the
the
real
meaning.
meaning of the meaning of this one. British spies often hide heroism behind modesty. Hey, I accomplished the mission, but I'm somewhat modest about that, or not so modest about me and Triple X.
Yeah, I'm honest about that part. The mission, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I get that.
Okay.
Uh,
Now I've got
I like
another one here, and
Okay.
this one isn't spoken by Bond. It's another quote by his adversary in Goldfinger. We hear this from Orc Goldfinger.
Twice our paths have crossed. Let's leave it at that.
Now, this is spoken by Goldfinger after the golf round at Goldfinger's club. And he's commenting about how many times Bond and Goldfinger's paths have crossed,
Yeah.
and neither time have gone well for Goldfinger. So Goldfinger is suspicious of Bond. He warns Bond a moment later that many people have tried to interfere with his affairs unsuccessfully. Bond's done it twice successfully.
Yeah.
So this phrase emphasizes that patterns indicate deliberate intent rather than random luck. You didn't just happen to beat me twice.
Right.
Now, this is a rewritten line from the Fleming novel of Goldfinger, and the line there is, "There's no such thing as coincidence." So slight
Yeah.
twist, but it's still classic spy logic.
Yeah, it's the same concept. And again, the simple line, there's so much more behind the line, which we're talking about here. So,
Yeah, I mean, because the real meaning here really is that in espionage, everything is planned. And I know you've planned this, James Bond. And Bond executes this all the time.
yeah,
You start with a plan. It often doesn't go the way you think it'll go.
yeah.
But is this a coincidence? Nope.
All right, let's get on to quote 13 from Thunderball.
I think you got the point.
All right, this is again from Thunderball. Of course, when Bond is killing Vargas with a spear gun, and Domino is present, of course. I mean, this is classic Bond again. Another post-kill pun. I think we'll see this again in the same movie. Bond diffuses a tense situation with a little bit of humor. Why? Well, the real meaning again is Bond is using humor as this emotional armor. It somewhat protects him and shields him from the nasty work of killing. So, again, here's another example.
No,
Good stuff.
you're right. You're spot on there.
Yeah.
All right. For quote number 12, we're going to go to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And we're going to do a quote here that sometimes we get some mixed reviews from fans on this line.
This never happened to the other fella.
I mean, it's a meta reference to the change from Sean Connery to George Lazenby. That's the obvious
Yeah.
interpretation, but many people use this as evidence that James Bond is just a code name. The other
Yeah.
fellow named James Bond.
No.
Now, the real meaning is James Bond acknowledges the myth of his character. We can take this as a tongue-in-cheek line that can be interpreted in many ways. You can interpret it to mean many things, like, wow, this never happened to my friend Felix Leiter or my buddy
Yeah.
009 or whatever. But
Yeah.
for me, this is just a bit of fun acknowledging the actor change. I know some people are put off by it, but I absolutely love this line, George's delivery, and how it's used in the movie. And I think it's good they didn't reuse it when Roger Moore came on board, or even when Connery
Oh,
came
yeah.
back in
It
Diamonds
would
Are
have been
Forever.
bad. That would have been bad.
So they set the stage that the James Bond actor can change, and maybe Bond's circumstances can change a bit too.
Yeah, any productions always they always had a little fun with the dialogue, the script writing, and so on. So it could be it's just a little funny thing, but again, like you said, it could refer to lots of other things. And heck, James Bond is not a code name.
It's not.
We have an entire episode out on that to prove this without a doubt. Let's get to quote number 11, and this is from Casino Royale 2006.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Well, we've heard that line before, Dan.
Yeah, we've heard
Why
the
are
line
we calling
before.
it out here?
Got to remember, though, Tom, Casino Royale 2006 is a reboot. We will reference this line here, but it is more important than that.
Well, also, it's slightly different than the way we've heard it in the past.
Well,
he
here in
us with
Casino,
the name's Bond.
Yeah, here in Casino, where Bond earns his 00 status, where he gets his license to kill. Here the line feels earned for the first time, right? Bond arrogantly is looking down at Mr. White, who he just wounded. Remember, the last thing that White said to Bond on the phone is, "Who is this?" So here, a moment later, Bond walks up the steps and smirkingly, if that's a word, smirkingly says, "The name's Bond, James Bond." That seemed earned.
Yeah, I agree with you. That seemed earned, but the problem I have with it is, we're 20 movies in. So is this really a real introduction? I mean, it's really telling us this whole Daniel Craig thing is going to just be, we're blowing up the series and starting over again.
Well, I know. But here, Bond, the real meaning, I think, what they're trying to tell us here is here Bond becomes Bond through experience. And in Casino here, he earned it. So we can leave it at that. And I think that's fine. The way we hear it later, or we heard 20 movies ago, much better.
For the past 20, yeah.
But here, it is there for a purpose. And that was the purpose. The Bond becomes Bond through experience. All right,
I'll give you that. All right, let's go to quote 10, which we're going back to Goldfinger again, to another quote.
A martini, shaken, not stirred.
Bond's signature drink.
I think we've heard that line before.
Yeah, we've heard that line before. Now we're going to keep it simple here, because it is. Dr. No says it in the movie Dr. No, and no one says it in From Russia with Love. James Bond doesn't say it until he's on Goldfinger's plane, but it does say a lot. The real meaning here is Bond is precise, controlled, and ritualistic. He doesn't just say, "Oh, make me a martini." He's telling you how he wants it.
Yeah.
He needs it his way.
And it does. It shows us he has a concept of what he likes in life, and that's what he wants. Yep. And so I think that's good. Again, it shows us and reveals part of his character, and we get to learn that through these lines. That's good writing.
Yep, I agree with you there. Now we're going to go to quote number 9. We're going to jump to Tomorrow Never Dies. And this is an Elliot Carver line here.
Yes.
The distance between insanity and genius is measured only by success.
So that line is by a villain. It's a villain's philosophy line. And what this is telling us that spy villains, the real meaning here is that spy villains see themselves as visionaries. They have ideas no one else gets yet.
Well, yeah, that's right. Because this line spoken in this movie is often attributed to the screenwriter and author Bruce Feirstein. And yes, it does suggest that unconventional, radical, or insane ideas are only deemed genius in hindsight. Of course, if they lead to success. If they don't, then yeah, it's madness.
There is a very thin line between those two.
Yeah.
And you have to try unconventional things sometimes to enact change. If it works, you're a genius. If not, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
For number 8, we're going back to Dr. No and a quote from James Bond.
World domination. Same old dream. Our asylums are full of people who think they're Napoleon or God.
Yeah, really. Napoleon or God. That's kind of saying a lot.
I love the pause between Napoleon or God.
Yep. Napoleon's one type of character, God's another. Yeah. Now, Bond says this to Dr. No after Dr. No explains how the East and West refused his services and how they must pay for not using them. Here in Dr. No, we get Bond mocking the villain, Dr. No, and his ambitions.
Yeah. I mean, it demonstrates in the first James Bond movie by Eon that Bond takes no crap from anyone. He openly mocks Dr. No, and this is while Bond is captured and being held by Dr. No. That really is chutzpah.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, wow. So number 7 brings us back to Goldfinger and a line by Q.
Eject a seat? You're joking.
I never joke about my work, 007.
I love how straight-faced Llewellyn sends this line, delivers this line.
Desmond Llewellyn always brought a smile to my face anytime he appeared anywhere.
So,
he was good.
Bond says you must be joking. There's an ejector seat here. And then, boom, Q's just in there, straight up. This is it. And the real meaning here is it shows us Q is for real. He's on point. He's doing his job. He's building sophisticated gadgets for his agents. And these gadgets often save his agents' lives. Yeah. He never jokes about his work. And remember, he's constantly telling Bond, now pay attention, 007, because this is important.
Yeah, I mean, really, he is building the on-screen character of Bond. He's contributing to it. Desmond Llewellyn SQ here.
Because it shows Bond doesn't always pay attention.
Yeah.
And Q, it's also showing Q is one of the people that has to put him in line.
It's perfect. All right, let's get to quote number 6. Here's one I like because of the line and the comeback by Bond. This is from GoldenEye, the final confrontation between Bond and Alec Trevelyan.
For England, James? No. For me.
For me.
You gotta love that retort. Or he releases Trevelyan to die. No, for me. All right, the real meaning is Bond isn't fighting for politics here. Here, he's not really representing MI6. This is a personal revenge on a fellow 00 agent turned bad. Bond kills him for his own satisfaction. That is cold-blooded. This is one tough Bond. Again, developing Bond's persona on screen for us, refining it, advancing it, revealing it. Terrific. He's fighting for duty.
And we just talked about the scene a few minutes ago in Dr. No where he kills Dent. It was the same type of thing. He didn't have to do it. Dent was unarmed at that point.
Yeah.
Here, he didn't have to let Trevelyan go, but he did it.
Yeah. For me. Now, this scene was supposed to be at the Arecibo radio telescope that used to be in Puerto Rico. It was a long time running radio telescope, for real, listening for signals from space from potential other intelligent civilizations. The telescope was decommissioned and collapsed in 2020. So today, Bond would have to find a different way to kill Trevelyan. But I'm certain he would.
Oh, and you're not going to get a much better death than that one, too. That's a good death scene.
Yeah, and there's a great line about listening. The Arecibo radio telescope was the largest at the time of the world, listening for these alien space signals, perhaps. I forgot who said it, but they said the proof that there is intelligent life elsewhere in the universe is that they have not contacted us.
That's good.
All right.
That's good. All right, so let's move into Tomorrow Never Dies for quote number 5. You know, Dan, I love dirty puns, and we got a good one here.
A dirty pun.
You always were a cunning linguist, James.
She says this to Bond while he's in bed with a woman, and he had just told Moneypenny that he was brushing up on his Danish. Moneypenny uses this line to compliment Bond's skills with words. She's also simultaneously making a sexual suggestive comment. I mean, it's highlighting and spotlighting the witty, flirtatious, and many times innuendo-laden exchange between James Bond and Moneypenny. It dives deep into our on-screen understanding of Bond and Moneypenny and their relationships. She's confident enough to be able to joke about these things with Bond, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch this the next time you watch it, look at her face right after she says this. She hangs up the phone, and then there's this smirk on her face. So she's proud of that line. So
Oh yeah, she is.
yeah. And again, that helps develop not only her personality there, but their relationship. So this is well written stuff. All right, quote number 4 from On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
There's no hurry, you see. You have all the time in the world.
All right, this is at the very end of the movie, of course, and we all know how it ends. And I think this is Bond's most tragic line from any movie. Worse than the bitch is dead from Casino Royale. And Lazenby delivers this line at the end of the movie to perfection. And I a lot of people said, maybe Connery would have been better. I don't know if anyone could have done better than George right there. Really, that's how good
I think
George
he
was.
delivered an excellent performance there.
Yeah. Now, the real meaning here is that, hey, spy life can destroy personal happiness, and quickly. It showed us Bond has an emotionally deep side, and that this moment will be forever etched in his psyche. Bond will carry this line with him always, as it will define his future.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about another line from that movie that kind of has impact here, that kind of ties into this, but it's earlier in the movie. So that just remember that this is a very emotional movie, and there's some really strong, powerful statements said in it. Yeah. And I also love the fact that that wonderful song by John Barry and Hal David is playing as we're seeing this. And Louis Armstrong's performance of this song dramatically enhances the effectiveness of the song.
Yeah, and he was so honored to be asked to sing it.
Yeah.
I said. All right.
That was good. All right, so quote number 3 is a shorter one we're going to take from Moonraker. We remember the scene where Drax and Bond are in the field hunting birds with those double-barreled shotguns.
Yeah.
It's Bond's turn to shoot. He does, and nothing seems to happen.
Oops.
And we get this exchange.
You missed, Mr. Bond.
Did I? As you said, such good sport.
It is such a well-written, simple scene. It has Bond written all over it. He just killed a guy, and he says, such good sport.
Yeah.
So the real meaning here, though, is that James Bond is the best MI6 agent for a reason. He does everything he can to get a step or two ahead of the enemy. I mean, this had to just dig into Drax big time. And he does that. You can imagine Bond scoping the trees while maybe Drax is shooting. He sees the setup, and then he acts on it.
Yeah.
And there's no concern at all about the sniper who just got shot out of this tree by either Drax or James Bond.
Yeah, Drax didn't give a damn.
Yeah, it's like, whatever. We get back to something we say all the time. Why didn't Drax just kill Bond?
Yeah.
Even after this incident.
Yeah.
I mean, he had his reasons, I'm sure, but this is a great sequence and great dialogue.
Yeah, I agree. A simple one, and again, revealing a lot about Bond. Now, let's get to quote number 2. I have a very short one here, too. And I think it's one of the most impactful lines in any James Bond movie ever.
Yeah, this is the line that I referred to earlier that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. I'd like to do an entire episode. In fact, we will do an entire episode on this line from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. When Bond and Tracy escape from the car race and the chase, and there's a blizzard, and they end up in this barn together, Bond and Tracy embrace, and they are talking. And she asks him what was going on out there. And he says, hey, he's still MI6, so he can't really talk about it. But after a few lines are exchanged, he says, I'll just have to find something else to do. Meaning, hey, he's willing at this point to leave MI6. Now we're thinking, what is going on here? Now, this is the big line.
I love you. I know I'll never find another girl like you. Will you marry me?
You mean it?
I mean it.
And Bond says, I mean it. 3 words. That's the line we want to talk about. When Bond says, I mean it, he is saying something about the rest of his life. He's willing to give up MI6, willing to give up his ways with women, willing to change completely his way of life. Totally. Forever. All by saying, I mean it. Wow. Those were some of the most powerful words James Bond ever spoke. And the scene between Bond and Tracy, Lazenby and, of course, Diana Rigg, was played to absolute perfection. The timing, the looks, the embrace, the words.
And the soundtrack. Yeah, absolutely. It really is impactful.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the final and most obvious one. We're going back to Dr. No again. And this is one that we called out earlier in a different movie, but here it is in Dr. No.
Bond. James Bond.
Bond, James Bond.
Gotta have that.
Exactly. Now we have
Nothing
to remember,
else could be number one.
Nothing else could be number one. We called out this line earlier when Daniel Craig says it. But that was from Casino Royale, the movie. But we have to remember that Ian Fleming's first novel was Casino Royale. So he says this in the first book, so they put it here in the first movie, Dr. No. And this is perhaps the most famous introduction of a character in movie history.
Ever.
And after decades, it is still one of the most self-sustaining and impactful lines ever uttered.
Yeah.
It's the best introduction to a character in a movie ever, period. No chance you're going to convince me otherwise. Yeah. I mean, it probably should be number one on everybody's list.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, the real meaning here is that it's not just a name. Bond, he's lighting his cigarette. He's smooth. He's announcing his brand, his identity, and the fact that we're now getting a legend put in front of us.
I also like the fact that he was somewhat parroting Sylvia Trench. I mean, she sets up the whole line.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
She set the table for this entire line, and it worked beautifully. So that
I love the way that flowed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we've got our 20 and why they are impactful to the franchise. What makes Bond quotes so powerful just isn't the words. It's what they reveal about the character, the humor, the danger, the confidence, and revealed to us movie by movie. When there is good writing, you get into the skin of the character.
Which is why we didn't have many Purvis and Wade quotes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. You feel what they're feeling. And you can almost predict what they will do in situations when the writing is so good. So, taking a look at some of the dialogue reveals a lot about James Bond.
Oh, yeah. And for over 6 decades now, these lines have helped us define one of the most iconic characters in movie history. James Bond has delivered unforgettable dialogue, lines that are witty, dangerous, and sometimes surprisingly profound.
Yeah.
And whether it's a clever one-liner or a quiet moment of honesty, Bond reminds us of one thing. In the world of espionage, the right words can be as powerful as any weapon.
Yeah. All right. That's a wrap. If you've enjoyed this episode of Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, make sure to subscribe and share it with a fellow spy movie fan. And remember, in espionage, every line means more than it seems. And trust no one except us.
Thanks a lot for listening.
We appreciate it.